And they're saying, hold on a minute, why the name Muhammad? Why would you use that name, the Blessed One? Unless, of course, there might be someone that this is referring to. Could there be someone named Muhammad in the 7th century that they're redacting their Muhammad back onto? Or actually existed in, like, say, the writings of Sabaeus, those who are outside? Because they are referring to someone named Muhammad. And lo and behold, we do know someone named Muhammad. This was his name. This was his nickname. This was his nom de guerre. This was his name he went into battle with. And he did live in the 7th century. So let's go to the slide and let's see what this guy is.
Welcome to Events and History, where we explore the origins, teachings, and historical development of Islam with a fact-based, analytical approach.
What if the man known as Muhammad was never a pagan prophet who turned from idolatry, but a Christian Arab influenced by the faith of the followers of Jesus? In this stunning episode, Al-Fadi and Dr. J. Smith challenge one of Islam's most sacred assumptions. Drawing from early inscriptions, Syriac Christian texts, and archaeological findings, they reveal that the earliest references to Muhammad may not describe a man's name at all, but a title meaning the praised one, a title once used for Christ himself. Could it be that Islam began not as a separate religion, but as a splintered Christian movement that later evolved into something entirely different? After all, St. John of Damascus, who was working in the court of Abdul Malik in the early days of the new sect called is the heresy of the Ishmaelites. This episode confronts the forgotten origins of Islam and asks the daring question few have ever dared to consider. Was Muhammad, in truth, a Christian? Let's watch the video.
Today, Dr. J, we are going to ask this question. So what about the 7th century Muhammad? We've been really talking about debunking alleged historical documentations, other means that typically have been used to prove Muhammad existed. But in light of these new developments and the directions that you and the researchers have been taking and even exposing, what do we do with this 7th century Muhammad then?
Yeah. And this material that I'm going to be introducing now is not my material. Have you noticed none of this is my material outside of the coins and some of the material? Well, there's some of it is mine, but this is really coming from Mel from Sneakers Corner. Mel from Sneakers Corner actually dropped into this a number of months ago. He had been intimating this about a year ago and then did research on this. These guys are researching all the time. And they're saying, hold on a minute, why the name Muhammad? Why would you use that name, the Blessed One? Unless, of course, there might be someone that this is referring to. Could there be someone named Muhammad in the 7th century that they're redacting their Muhammad back onto? Or actually existed in, like, say, the writings of Sabaeus, those who are outside? Because they are referring to someone named Muhammad. And lo and behold, we do know someone named Muhammad. This was his name. This was his nickname. This was his nom de guerre. This was his name he went into battle with. And he did live in the 7th century. So let's go to the slide and let's see what this guy is. Well, his name is right there on the slide, Ilyas ibn Qabisa of Tayaye. Now, it could be Ilyas or Iyas. You don't have to have the L there. Both are correct. Because I don't want people yelling all over me, you got misspelled it. No, both are correct. Both are found in the tradition, the material from that time. What the traditions tell us, however, remember what the traditions from the 9th and 10th century tell us, is that Muhammad lived in the Hijaz. There is that green area. I've just put it up on the map. You've seen this before. And that he invaded the Byzantines and the Persians, which were further north, so he was significant. Yet there's nothing written about him from that time. This is the recurring theme that we've been having over all these series.
And let me process to you, things that I've learned, right? And thoughts that came to my mind. It's always been baffling to me. Muhammad lived in Hijaz, right? At the time of his death, the area that he conquered in Hijaz was really very
minuscule,
small, right? Very
minuscule.
Small. Yet you hear about him going all the way to fight Caesar, right? And you're saying, why in the world would he go all the way across hostile territories to go and fight another empire and ignore the rest of the Arabian Peninsula?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. So you can see there's an awful lot of aggrandizement in the traditions. The traditions, remember, as I said, are from the 9th and 10th century. When you redact back on somebody who is 200 to 300 years earlier, you can pretty much say anything you want unless you know the history, unless you're looking at the topography. In the 9th and 10th century, that would make sense, because in the 9th and 10th century, their empire included, well, it didn't quite include the Latin of Rome. It wouldn't include Italy, but include all around it. And certainly it included all the way, as we've said over and over again, by that time, it included all the way from India all the way to, by this time, all the way to Andalusia in the east.
Right.
So the Andalusia, well, you're talking about Spain. That's what we know as Spain today.
Southern Spain,
all
or
of North
most
Africa.
most of Spain.
In the 9th and 10th century. Yeah. So if you're looking back and you're not thinking it through very carefully, as Al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and these others are not, or Ibn Hisham even earlier, they're not thinking through, this land did not exist under his control that early. Yes, in the 9th century, in 833, when Ibn Hisham's writing his history down, it would have existed. But be careful. Be a good historian. They weren't thinking about that. They weren't thinking of people like us actually asking them if this could make sense. So here we have this Ilyas ibn al-Qabisa of Tayaya. Tayaya means allotment. So what we need to do is we need to look and say, we need to find a man, and here we find out that this man is named Muhammad. That is his nickname. Ilyas ibn Qabisa of Tayaya is the place he comes from, is nothing more than his formal name. Well, we know that in 618, the Saracens, these are the Arabs, these include mostly Christians. Nothing Muslim about them. Saracens is not Muslim. These are Christian Arabs. They took Syria, Arabia, and Mesopotamia, and they selected a king in 622. Who is that king in 622? Turns out he is a Lakhmid king who rebelled and was kicked out of his city and then reconquered it. So we need to look to someone who was a Lakhmid king, which is a Christian kingdom. Look at the red area there, the red rectangle. That's the Lakhmid area. Notice that is where Iraq is today. So hundreds of miles north. This is not in the Hijaz. All right? Make sure that we get this right. And that he conquered that city, and then he reconquered it again. And where did he come from? He came from that city that I've just put up there, Hira. Today that's called Kufa. It's just southwest of what is today called Baghdad. Yeah. Back then it would have been called Ctesiphon.
Hira. Okay, let's stop here for a second.
Go ahead.
What was the name of the cave where Muhammad encountered?
Hira cave.
There you go. You see, I'm telling people, look at these data. Coincidence? It's amazing that we have all these coincidences, right?
Well, give me another coincidence. Look at Al-Bukhari in 870. He refers to and he says that Muhammad is also known as Ibn Abi Qabsha.
That's right. Many people, by the way, don't know that Muhammad is not the real name of Muhammad. There is another name for him.
Ibn Abi Qabsha. Look how close that is to Ilya ibn Qabisa.
That's right.
It's just a deformation of the same name. So even Al-Bukhari knows this in the 9th century. He just didn't know where this guy was. It looks like this guy would take a look and go back to the 7th century, and you'll find this is Ilyas ibn Qabisa, but he did not live in the Hijaz. He did not live in Mecca. He did not move up to Medina. He lived way up north in the Hira. He was a Lakhmid king. He was a Christian, not a Muslim. Now, Khusrau, who was the...
Which makes sense for this reason. If you look at early revelations of the Quran, the supposed Meccan one, it has a lot of wonderful talk about Christians and Christianity and the people of the book.
Absolutely. Well, who do you think they were having contact with? Not in Medina. They weren't
exactly.
Down that far
there was
there
none
were no
in
Jews
there.
That far south. There were no Christians. There could have been Christians. There were Christians in Abyssinia, which would be Ethiopia and Eritrea today.
And that's usually the pushback. Oh, it was during the time when they were in Abyssinia. But no. Give me a break. That was a short period of time. We're talking about.
And where is Abyssinia? And where is
across the Red Sea?
Look there. You can see
Ethiopia.
Where Eritrea. Look on the map there. Let's go up to the slide again. Look where Eritrea is. That's where that's Eritrea. That's hundreds of miles away, and it's too far to the southwest. So that's not this. And so now let's go back to just keep the slide up there and look at the name Khusrau. Khusrau is a Sassanian king, one of the greatest of the Sassanian Empire.
That's right. And you hear about Muhammad fighting with Khusrau also.
He does. He is used by Khusrau, and Khusrau uses Muhammad, who is Ilya ibn Qabisa. He uses him as his intermediary, his emissary amongst the Lakhmids, because he needs someone to control that area. So he appoints him to be his emissary, and he gives him 30 villages in recompense. So he becomes the king of those 30 villages. That is all historical. That is well known. That is there in the Sassanian literature.
But the Islamic version is that Muhammad sent a letter, Aslim Taslim, basically accept Islam, you will be living in peace, otherwise we will fight you. I mean, that's the tradition. Is like Muhammad sent a delegate to him with a letter, invite him to accept Islam.
Okay, and that comes, now look at the slide again, because that does come up there. That is semi-historical, because once the Byzantines can destroy the Sassanians, look at the date, 622.
Hijrah.
There you go. There's a date for the Hijrah. Once they destroy the Sassanians, that takes the oppression that the Lakhmids and the Ghassanids have been under, these Christians, they've been under this oppression by the Persians. The Byzantines come and destroy them, freeing them up. Who then rebels against Khusra? Who rebels against Assassin? Ilyas ibn Qabisa rebels. He then changes sides and becomes part of the Arab rebellion in 622. That's why 622 is so important, because this is where the Arabs finally have their identity starting to be introduced.
Right.
That happens in 622. He joins the Arabs against the Sassanids. So that's hugely important. Now, thus, the Arab identity began with this 7th century Muhammad of high status. He is not poor at all, so he's not the same Muhammad as the 9th century. Ilyas ibn Qabisa, after he then rebels, he then brings and arbitrates between the Jews who are coming down from Edessa, way up in the north in southern Turkey. They're being thrown out of Edessa. They come down to Hira in that area, and they need someone to arbitrate. There's the arbitration comes in. Who do they use? Ilyas ibn Qabisa. Muhammad becomes the arbiter. That's where that story about arbitration going to Medina is.
That's right.
So there is some historical
Again, I asked the
foundation
question.
for it. But
Coincidences?
this is not in Mecca and Medina. This is all happening up in Hira, way up north.
Now, can we collaborate this version now? Are there data to support it? I mean, I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here.
This is all coming out of the Sassanid documents. This is all coming out of the historians of that time. That's why Mel was able to look up it and find it and say, listen, this is the Muhammad we're looking for.
Did Dr. Hoyland ever mention anything about
Hoyland doesn't say that, and he doesn't put this two together. This is why Hoyland only puts what the documents say. He didn't interpret it, and he could not, and he didn't understand this part of it. And that's why we're saying, listen, Hoyland, thank you for giving us the documents. Now let's interpret it and let's see what's happening. What's fascinating, you see these parallels between this Muhammad and the later Muhammad. This Muhammad, first of all, is a leader. This Muhammad is an arbiter. This Muhammad did use the sword. This Muhammad used that name when he went to war, but his real name is Ilyas ibn Qabisa. He did come from the Tayyaya, the people that lived there amongst the Lakhmids, but he lived way up in Hira. Now, it doesn't stop there. Once he rebels, he then leaves, and once he does his arbitration, he then leaves and goes to the west. He goes to Petra. Ooh,
Oh,
Petra.
There we go.
Why did he go to Petra? What's happening in Petra? Well, basically, he's just going back to the people of his ancestry, because Petra, remember, was always the sanctuary of the Nabateans, of which the Lakhmids and the Ghassanids are the descendants of. So he is going back to the place of his inheritance, as they all do. And what does he do? He goes all the way up to Gaza, and he fights against the Byzantines in Gaza, and then that's why Petra now becomes important, and that's why we need to get back to Petra. But let me just, before we do that, note that the 7th century Muhammad lived and worked much further north. Also, the conclusion. So the later traditions have the wrong Muhammad. They have the wrong Muhammad. He's from the 9th and 10th century. As the real Muhammad lived much further north, was quite well known and powerful, and is credited with helping to initiate the Arab rebellion against the Sassanids and Byzantines around 622. Now, one other thing that I just want to bring up, and that is, what about Petra? What is coming up next? So what we need to do is we need to look at Petra, because if he moves over to Petra, we need to bring in Gibson's material. I would like to move over to that, because once we get into Gibson's material, you're going to see that that's where the two come together. Because so far we've been saying everything is in Hira, we've been saying everything is up in Edessa, we've been saying everything is up in Baghdad, which was Ctesiphos in that time. We're saying that these people are from Tabaristan and Bukhara. These are all that. We're saying north, 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 north. We have almost forgot about Gibson. We got to bring Gibson into this too, because we've got to start talking about the Qibla. We've got to see why that the trade routes. We've got to see what Patricia Cronin was bringing up in 1977 in her book Hagerism, and then in 1987 when she wrote Meccan Trade and the Rise of Islam. So that's going to be the next episode.
And just to let you know, Kabisa in Arabic, where you get the word kabasa, meaning kind of condensed. That's why you're unpacking it for us.
So the name itself explains what we're doing.
That's right. And I think Petra, we're going to learn plethora of things from Petra.
Plethora from Petra.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Your opponent didn't know it.
So then the next episode is going to focus now on Petra and all the things that will not. It seemed like we're starting to connect more and more dots.
And people have said this, and whenever we've been putting up these videos this last year in 2020, they've been asking, what about Petra? You've forgotten about Petra. No, we haven't forgotten about Petra. It comes up next. You're going to see now why all this makes sense, and you're going to see while the whole evolution of Islam is it's moving from the north, it then finally starts to settle down south. Why down south? That's coming up next.
Wonderful.
If the evidence uncovered in this episode is accurate, then the roots of Islam may lie in a lost branch of Eastern Christianity. The figure we know as Muhammad may not have founded a new religion at all, but inherited and transformed an existing stream of Eastern Christianity. The earliest inscriptions, the Qur'anic vocabulary, and the theology of mercy and judgment all point back to a community that already revered the Messiah. Over time, that movement drifted, redefining its leader, its scriptures, and even its God. Al-Fadi and Dr. J. Smith remind us that truth is not afraid of scrutiny, it welcomes it. And as history is peeled back layer by layer, we see not the rise of a foreign faith, but the echo of a forgotten one. What if Islam began not as a rejection of Christianity, but as a heretic sect that metamorphosized into a new religion to unite an empire? No wonder Islam today is a political religion seeking to conquer the world. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and share this video so others can see it. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more Islamic history content. Stay with us as we sift through history to find out what the standard Islamic narrative on the Islamic Awareness website is hiding regarding the origin of Islam. Jesus is Lord.